Hello and welcome to My Side of the Bag. I'm Drew Hinesley, joined by my co-host Scotty Worldwide. My Side of the Bag, proudly sponsored by Birdie Brands. Game on, bugs gone, best bug spray in the game, and also sponsored by Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. You call it salsa, you call it red sauce. When you have Uncle Keith's, you can call it a party. Happy to have one of the best people in the game of golf on the show today. Current caddy for number 20 in the world, Justin Thomas, but a Hall of Famer list before that. Matt Minister, welcome to My Side of the Bag.
Thanks for having me.
And Matt, known by everybody in pro golf as Rev, a little play on his last name of Minister. So if we call him that throughout the show, just so you listeners are aware, that is a very respectful nickname we give Mr. Minister. So
About the
Matt,
only thing anyone calls me, Drew, so don't call me Matt. I have to introduce myself as Matt, but no one calls me by that name.
I know, again, it's just one of those things. We're trying to be a little formal here.
Yes.
We do have folks that aren't golf nerds that are listening to this show. So I have to make sure when they Google your name, that actually the proper thing comes
Yeah,
up on Google.
that's good.
All right, Matt, proud Ohio State Buckeye. Let's go ahead and just get that out of the way. Hosting a playoff game Saturday in the Horseshoe. How do you feel about
Yes.
that?
Well, it's going to be 22 degrees, probably feel like 9. Some people are saying the folks from Knoxville aren't going to be able to handle the cold. I think it gets cold in Knoxville in the winter, so I would imagine both teams will be ready to deal with that. Hopefully, our team is better prepared than our last game. I'm not over it yet. Michael Greller still is sending me an occasional text reminding me that we lost again 4 years in a row. So
Well,
I
and
was
I
there.
got
I was there John Cooper years in the '90s, so I was actually used to losing with some of the best teams ever assembled. So this is not a new experience for me.
well, I'll tell you some current events that are going on outside of the world of golf. There is an Ohio senator that's trying to pass a bill that's going to make it a felony to plant a flag at the Horseshoe. Wouldn't it just be a lot easier just to beat them?
Well, I think that should be the only focus is just winning the game. You have 364 days to plan. Um, so yes. Now there's a lot of the Ohio folks know that senator's from Toledo, and there's always half of Toledo is rooting for Michigan and half is rooting for Ohio State. So that guy might be trolling some of his own fans in the state. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Well, I can tell you, as a Georgia football fan, I was in the stadium in Athens in 1991 when Georgia Tech beat us and went on to share a national championship with Colorado. And a member of their band planted a flag during halftime on our centennial anniversary logo. And I'll never forget that. So
those are the things that keep the rivalry as strong as it is, right?
that's right. All right, now to some golf. Coming off couple pretty good weeks.
Yeah.
Top fives in both Japan and the Bahamas. Talk about what's going on right now with your boss, Justin Thomas.
Playing some really, really good golf, driving the ball beautifully. Worked with the folks at Titleist, getting shaft and the head synced perfectly. The balance of the weight and the tweaking the shaft a little bit, and he's driving it as good as I saw him drive it ever since I started working for him. That's been probably the biggest key in the last 2 events. It was fun. The rest of the year, he played good. We never really had a chance to win, so it was actually fun the last 2 events to be in the mix where we could have won. Things didn't, work out that way, but it was great.
Matt, just for the gearheads, the change in driver, is it a longer driver? Is that correct that I've heard?
So the last event, he's had a version of a longer driver, 46 inches, like a inch and an eighth longer than his gamer driver, I think you would call it. He's had a version of that the whole time, but this one, the misses started to get a little tighter. and mainly it's the shaft. Think a little tipper, a little stiffer in the tip and in the butt, um, and that's helped, kind of bring the misses in. But I mean, when we were in the Bahamas, it was very impressive. Long, I mean, legit long.
Well, I've been around him in a lot of events. Was with him the final 18 holes. He won the Players 2021, and I've seen him, shape it all different ways, all different
Yeah,
windows. Does he still have that with the new driver?
it's because he hasn't played it a whole lot in competition. It's maybe a little more one dimensional, but as he was playing it over the 4 days in the Bahamas, he actually started hitting shots with it. Started, being able to cut it a little more, which he likes. That's his kind of go-to shot, is being able to shape it a little left to right, and that started to come out. But I would say the height of it's a little higher than his gamer, where he could do whatever he wants with the ball with his gamer.
Scotty, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things I think people respect about JT is how much of a shot maker he is. Have you seen that into you joining the team and kind of been fun for you to caddy and kind of see the different shots that he likes to make? Kind of probably most people on tour, would you say?
Yeah, I think I'm still learning. We're talking about it. I'm occasionally able to go practice with him, and that's when I try to pick his brain more, because he does, where it may look like it would suit a little fade or a little draw, he maybe would turn the ball a little more than what I would see or what most players would see. I'm still picking his brain, trying to, be able to see what he's seeing and why. A lot of times it's distance related. He wants to work it against the wind even more to take some yards off or add yards on, and that's just me sort of learning his game. Um, and it's a lot of fun because it's not just stock shots or anything like that. I mean, he really can do a lot with the golf ball.
All right, I've got a trivia question for both of you.
Oh,
Who won more money on the PGA Tour in the 1990s than any other golfer?
I might go with Nick Price.
Correct. Ding, 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 ding. There's a reason I'm asking the question.
Yeah, it's kind of. I thought maybe there was an angle there.
Yeah, that's the angle. So a decade of leading money on the PGA Tour, that's incredible consistency. And I think you have a guy now that has that ability to kind of
Yeah.
get back to that level. Talk about the similarities in Nick and JT, if there are any. I imagine there's quite a few.
Yeah, there are quite a few. The mentality, to be as good as both of them are, I see a lot of similarities in just how they prepare, how they think. There's no stone unturned. They're constantly, even when they're away from a tournament, they're still focusing and thinking about the game, thinking about their game. Um, that's one of the biggest things Nick would do. I got the chance to work 6.5 years for Nick, and it was kind of, past his prime, but I there was a few periods of time when he was playing where he said that's how it used to be, and wow, because it was silly how good it was. The ball striking was, off the charts. But Nick would always go over the week, reach out to me Monday, Tuesday after the week, and give sort of his synopsis of what happened, what he thought he did well, what he thought I did well, what I could have done better, what he could have done better. And Justin does a very similar thing. I mean, he's thinking about each week and what could have happened, should have happened, and what I can, what we can do better as a team, me personally, him personally, and I think that's the biggest similarity. Golf wise, they're very different. The game has changed a lot. Justin swings a heck of a lot harder than Nick does, or did in his prime. So you can't really compare that. But yeah, I mean
I,
they're both phenomenal.
I see you with your USA shirt on there, and obviously
Yeah.
playing really, really good golf going into 2025. Obviously, what would the Ryder Cup team mean, and how excited are you for potentially uh, getting something in Bethpage this year?
I think it would mean the world to both of us to be on that team. The focus, though, is on the next tournament.
Sure.
The only way to get there is by playing good golf, and you have to play good golf the next tournament that you play in. I know that. I know he knows that. So I think that'll be a constant reminder if we either one of us feel like we're getting a little ahead of ourselves and thinking too far down the road. Uh, I have my wife is Irish, and we just had family in town, and he brought it up. He's like, what do you think? Are you excited? Do you think you have a chance? And immediately I'm just like, it's going to be one of the biggest events ever in golf up there in Long Island this coming September. It's definitely somewhere I want to be.
Well, I remember working with NBC at the 2020 U.S. Open at Wingfoot, and Patrick Reed and Bryson. Of course, Bryson went on to a landmark victory there, landslide victory, winning by several shots. And I tell people all the time that might have been a lot different for both P. Reed and Bryson had those New York fans been out there to talk
Sure.
to them for 72 holes. And that's going to be the case at the Ryder Cup. Of course, Bryson will be on the positive side of the
Right.
heckling playing
Yeah.
for USA. But it's going to be amazing with those fans, knowing what you and I know from what that event brings out of people.
And see, I've only had a chance to do one Ryder Cup, and it was truly one of the highlights of my entire career and life. And it was still COVID affected. There weren't a lot. There were very, very few European fans in at Whistling Straits.
Right.
So I've been told I didn't even get the full feeling of what real Ryder Cup with that many fans. So I mean, this one coming up is going to be bonkers.
Well, I can tell you, even at Whistling Straits, with a very limited amount of blue and yellow in the stands, there was a situation where Sergio Garcia's father-in-law almost went into the stands to get after some fans that were on Sergio. So I'm really hoping that Sergio somehow makes it on this team,
Yeah,
whether it's in a plane or a captain capacity,
for
because
sure.
he'll bring so much energy to that crowd. Just the crowd
Yeah,
trying to cheer against him, it'll be so much more fun.
yeah. He's been a huge part of the entire Ryder Cup scene, and I'd love to see him there.
All right. Well, you talk about the next event, and succeeding at the next event's the only way to get to the thing we're talking about down the road. Next event, Century Tournament of Champions, maybe the Sony, couple of places where he's played amazing. So you got to be feeling pretty good these couple weeks before you head into the new season.
Yeah, coming off Bahamas, coming off the last two events that he's played, I mean, it's nothing but excitement. That he's continuing to work on his game. Everything's in the right place. It's just each week fine tuning it and getting used to the different grasses. Yeah, I mean, that's really for these guys at their level. It's getting to the new course and figuring out which wedges you're going to use bounce wise and all that, and getting used to the grass and getting your speed right on the greens. Um, we're going to play. He just had his first child, and so I think his schedule is he's going to try to balance where he wants to play and making sure that he is always there for his family. So we're going to play Maui. We're not going to play Sony.
Okay.
So Maui's one and out there, one and done.
Okay. My side of the
Good
bag
place,
brought
good
you.
place to go.
Yes, there's no complaints,
Yeah.
none at all.
My side of the bag brought to you by Uncle Keith's Red Sauce and by Birdie Brands. Drew Hinesley, Scotty Worldwide, here today with Rev, also known by his legal name, Matt Minister. All right, Matt, you talk about your journey into caddying, because you were a very, very good player at one point in time.
I wouldn't have used Barry, and I definitely wouldn't have used it twice, but that's nice of you. I played at Ohio State. and that was
which
it.
makes you a very, very good golfer, by the way.
I by 96 I actually started playing okay. Really started to become a little bit better of a golfer. I tried to play some mini tour golf. I did play some mini tour golf. The last year that I played was by far the best golf I ever played, and I quit. Um, I got that year, that was 2000, and went out on whether it was Nike or Buy.com tour, went out and tried to Monday qualify for about a month. And Chris Smith, who was also a Buckeye, he and I had a deal where, hey, you go play the Monday, and if you don't qualify, you come caddy for me. And so didn't qualify the first event. That might have been, oh gosh, I don't remember. It may be Knoxville. Might have been Knoxville. Anyway, finished second the first week I caddied for him. Should have won. Go roll on to the next week in Richmond. Same thing. I actually played really good in that qualifier, missed by one. Go in and finish second again. So I didn't even bother to Monday qualify in the third week. I was like, I'm just gonna caddy. I was making more. And obviously we know those purses weren't very much money, but I still was making more than I was playing on mini tours, caddying for him. And so we finished like in the mid-20s the following week. Kind of ran out of steam, but he's playing amazing. And he just looks at me. He goes, "Dude, you gotta stop playing. Come caddy for me." And I was a little peeved because I knew I was starting to play good golf, and I'm like, "Dude, I want to be you. I don't. I don't.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun, but I want to do what you're doing." But as it turns out, I went to Q school and played terrible, putted like a idiot, and that was it for me. And I called him about 3 weeks later, and he said, "Dude," he goes, I didn't want to call you because I want you to come caddy for me, but I didn't want to be unsympathetic for how bad you just played at Q school." So I called him. I said, if the job's still there, I'd love to do it. And that's how I got into it. It was that summer, dipping my toe in the caddy game and loving it. Obviously I loved it because, we were trying to win golf tournaments immediately. And that was, what that adrenaline's unbelievable. So yeah, so 01 was the start of my, tour career.
Well, I've got a funny Chris Smith story for you. I'm with him. This is 2015 into his career. At the time, Web.com playoffs were in Fort Wayne, Indiana. As you know, that's a home game for Chris.
Right.
Got a brand new Titleist bag for that week. It's an early morning start, and we're walking down this par 3, and I think Charlie Wee's in the group. So Chris and Charlie kind of jump on the cart path. I get on the cart path with him. And Chris turns around, and his caddy, again, Chris has, probably 100 family and friends out walking around. So for his caddy, I think he's a local kid. He feels like he's in a group with Tiger. All these people walking around. He's getting a little caught up. And he just kind of walks over near the rope line talking to his friends, and he's walking on the grass. Early morning, slick grass. And Chris turns around and sees him. And he's right in front of me, and he turns around again, and I think he wants to tell him, "Hey, buddy, get on the cart path. You could slide all the way." We've all seen it happen. Sure enough, Chris turns around that second time, and this kid rides 20 yards down the grass, and he never hits the ground because he's on top of Chris's bag the whole way. He gets up, and the white Chris Smith stitching is green, and Chris is losing his mind. And this was like on the 5th or 6th hole, and by the end of the round, he's still giving it to this kid. And he comes up to me on the 18th green. He goes, "Do you know what's going to happen this afternoon?" And I'm just laughing because I know he's about to give me something good. And he says, "I'm about to get a glass of tequila. I'm going to sit in my chair on the porch, put my feet on the ottoman, and I'm giving him a toothbrush, and he's scrubbing every bit of grass out of that net on that brand new bag." And I laughed so hard, and he's always been one of my favorite guys.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you'd appreciate that story.
Too many stories. Too many stories. Yeah, we had fun. We had fun. I caddied for Chris all the way through into '05. Yeah, we had a blast together. First win for me, his first PGA Tour win, 2002 at the Buick
Buick.
Classic in New
Yeah.
York. And I mean, that's somebody recently asked me what's my favorite memory, and that is, I mean, it's the first one, and to do it with one of your, good friends, your college buddy. I mean, it was, a dream come true. One I'll never
That's awesome.
forget.
And then where do you go from there?
What did I do? We split up. I went and worked at MacArthur Golf Club in Hobe Sound, Florida, and started caddying for some great members and staying at home, getting off the road for a while. I mean, Chris, at the end, we had a tough run. We just didn't do any good, and so it was nice to get off the road and kind of get my head right. But it was interesting. It was January, maybe February. It'd probably been 4 or 5 months, and came around the corner and there was Nick Price, and he's like, Rev, he goes, I heard you were here. He goes, get in the cart. So I got right in the golf cart. We went to the back of the range, and he looked at me. He says, I'm playing terrible, but he goes, I'd love to have you come out and caddy for me.
Oh.
And it didn't take me a whole lot of time to think about it, because I love the guy, and he was, he lives close to me, and he basically said, listen, we're going to get on the airplane, and I'll take you wherever you want to, wherever we go, you're coming with me. And so life was awfully easy. Playing champions tour, senior tour, and it was so much fun. But basically worked for Nick, for 6.5 years, up until he had a tennis elbow and he couldn't play anymore. And then had to go find something else to do.
Do you still keep in touch with him?
I'm working for him starting Wednesday at the father-son. So that's a yes.
Amazing.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I think this will be 9 years that I've done the father-son with Nick, or the parent-child PNC championship. And I tell you, like, he and I became great friends, and we've remained great friends. And it's one of the most enjoyable weeks for me, being out there with him and his son Greg. We just have an absolute blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, most folks might be turning in to watch Tiger and Charlie, but I'll be tuning in to watch you guys.
I hope you see us. We usually are kind of floating around the bottom of the leaderboard, but you never know. I mean, Greg, a lot of these kids played a lot of golf, growing up, and Greg didn't. So, he picked up the game late, and that's another thing that's so cool about watching or being with them for 9 years doing it is, Greg the first year really, really struggled. And now, I mean, we take a lot of his shots. I mean, if he drives the ball well, we're playing his drive most of the time. And it's been fun to watch somebody grow to love the game and get that much better at it and work hard at it. Even though he does a lot of other things, where golf isn't a focus. So, I mean, that's another really cool part of it.
Really cool. Rev, to stay on Nick, you and Jimmy Johnson have worked for Nick, and now both have worked for JT. Do you see any coincidences there, or similarities in personalities?
Oh, I would imagine that Nick and JT would say there are some similarities. I know Jimmy well, and yes, I mean there are. I mean we both have similar senses of humor. A little bit dry. He might be a little drier than me. He's a little more clever. He's pretty quick-witted. And so a lot of he's got some, you hear stories about some amazing one-liners that he's, thrown at a gallery, trying to get people to, pipe down. And he's got some amazing one-liners that I've heard. But, I think both of us are honest, very, I don't even know how to say it, but there's no BS with either one of us. call it like we
Sure.
see it, and pretty quick to call it like we see it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest similarities.
Yeah, being around you both, I would say you're both very transparent out there. There's
Yeah.
no question where you stand on a shot or a strategy. You both know what you want to do, and you convey it to your player very quickly and very clearly.
Thank you, because I do try to do that. Yeah, that's always been. I learned a lot of that from Nick, to be honest. I think you pick up a lot of stuff for every player you work for. Where a lot of the things that Chris had me do for him, I actually still do them. And then you learn from Nick, and I learned probably, the management side of the game coming from a Hall of Famer. That's I learned a lot from him. And also, I think this was something that, I learned after the fact, but being on the Champions Tour, I'm watching the Hall of Fame play golf. And I got to see all of those guys who were the best players, the players I watched growing up, and I got to see all of them do their craft standing right next to them. I remember the first time being paired with Hale Irwin, and Nick's like, "Watch this guy." He goes, "Nobody hates making bogeys more than this guy." He goes, "Maybe Tiger, but he goes, I don't think so." And Hale Irwin hates making bogeys, and it was no joke. I mean, he'd make a 30-footer. He's not even, at this point, he wasn't winning like he was at the start of his Champions Tour, but, the guy was a grinder on top of being really good. And it was all those things that you take in after the fact, sort of. And I appreciate them now more than I probably did in the moment.
You probably don't see those guys with a whole lot of 55-yard bunker shots, do you?
No. Well, that's, like with Nick, but this is, again, it's sort of could Nick hit a 3-wood 280 yards? No, right? So now on all these par fives, where Nick would be like, I can't get there. So, how far is it to 90? Because if he had 90, he's like, all right, this is inside 10 feet, guaranteed. And so you're always, you're laying up, let's lay up to my number. Now, you're 300 yards to the front edge, and if there's no water, you're just sending it and figuring out how to get the ball up and down. So, the game's changed a lot, management-wise too. However, you still have to, it comes into play sometimes.
Well, you also have a guy who I think I remember walking up the sixth hole at Pinehurst this year with you, and he's in that big gaping bunker left of the green, and we're talking about how much you're going to get if he holds this out. He's got the ability to actually do that. And on that shot, he came pretty darn close.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we had to play those sorts of games to keep our minds. That wasn't a great week for Team Thomas.
But he does have I think, personally, used to be Jason Day. Now I think Justin Thomas is the best bunker player in the world. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I mean, his short game is as good as I've ever worked for. So, I mean, it's off the charts. I mean, guys watch him to learn. It would be the way you should do things. I mean, there's so many players out there that are so good at different aspects of the game. I mean, there's no better way to learn than to copy.
Yeah, I walked with him and Bones 2-3 years ago. It was the first time they were doing Riv together. And he just put balls behind number 5, and watching JT and Chip was something that, how do you stop it on a 4.5 slope there, and he did
Right.
it. So it was fun to watch.
He can hit shots. And I sometimes I have to remind myself, because there's so many pins that you play on tour that are just, no-nos. You never go for them. And I sometimes see, like, Justin can, because if he does, accidentally miss in the wrong spot, he can get the ball up and down, where 70% of the guys have no chance of doing so. So I have to remind myself as a caddy that we can be maybe a little more aggressive than some players.
Let's
All
go.
right, well,
yeah, go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, before we let you go, we wanted to play a quick 9 with you. But, Scotty, if you've got one more question, go ahead.
No, I just you've said before one of your favorite places is Hilton Head because
Yeah.
it's laid back and the laid back vibe. But now, it's changed to a signature event. So has that kind of changed the laid back vibe and kind of changed the overall feel of Hilton Head itself?
No, I actually I thought it was exactly the same with more people.
Okay.
It became maybe a more people, so it was more of a party. That little area 10 to 16 over there was even more crowded than normal, and yeah, it's great to have people come out and to get the top 70 players to play against each other. I mean, that was the goal. Um, I think it has affected the crowds. I think the crowds are bigger. I think they are better. And there's a lot of guys that wouldn't choose to play that event. And so I think it's great with this format that they're somewhat forced to. And I think the more they play the golf course, the more they'll find that it is an amazing golf course. And you have to really think your way around, and you have to do some things that you don't normally do in other weeks. You're going to have to hit an iron off a tee. That may be boring to some guys, but hey, you still got to perform, still got to hit a good iron off the tee.
Exactly.
All right. Well, before we let you go, we want to play a quick 9 with you. 9 rapid fire questions. Whatever the first thing comes into your head. We've already covered a little bit of this ground, but we're going to revisit it now. So 9 questions. Scotty, you want evens or odds?
You picture.
I'll go first. Before we
Okay.
go, Birdie Brands, proud sponsor of My Side of the Bag, and Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Both those brands sponsor Quick 9 here with Rev. Favorite place in golf?
Augusta.
Okay. Least favorite place in golf.
Oh, San Antonio.
Fair.
People don't realize that that's always in the top 10 most difficult courses on tour. And a lot of people overlook it because of its place in the schedule. That's a hard golf course, and you're
Oh,
always dealing with
they
weather.
have a lovely hotel on property, and it ends there, as far as I'm concerned.
And if you don't have kids, you don't enjoy the water park. So what's the
There's
point?
no, yeah.
All
Please
right.
no.
I think I know the answer to this, you being a proud Ohio State Buckeye. What is your 5th major?
Yeah, it's Memorial. I mean, it's close. I played the U.S. Amateur at Sawgrass, so I love Sawgrass. So I mean, that's a big event. We know it's a big event, but it's all because I played in a big event there. It's always meant a little more to me, also. But yeah, it's Memorial.
But what about winning at
That's
Memorial?
that's
How
the
special?
jacket, right? That's the jacket right up there.
Hey.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, winning at Memorial.
Yeah.
I mean, winning your hometown event, that would be like me doing what you've already done, which is winning the tour championship with somebody. That would be the greatest week I could imagine.
It's when I won there with Patrick the first time, I was holding, standing there with the flag, his back, I was, facing his back, but looking over his shoulder was my mom and my son in the first row right there watching it happen. Chills right now. The second time it happened, I had both my sons and my mom, same spot. I had to rake a bunker, so it wasn't quite the same. I wasn't in the same spot, but still, to be able to look up and see your family and winning at a place. I mean, we were just cleaning out my mom's house, and I have memorabilia from like the '80s
Mm.
at that tournament. So
Cool.
Jack Nicklaus's signature on the pamphlets, on the tee sheets, and all this stuff. I mean, I was one of those kids saying sign,
Yeah.
bothering the players, but I still have all that stuff. People wonder how you get into this. I mean, I never lose sight of these kids that are wanting an autograph from these players. I mean, I'm one of those kids. And here I am being able to walk the fairways now. I mean, it's chills. So yeah, Memorial.
That's so cool. Well, I think you might have already answered it, but the best major.
Yeah, Augusta.
Would you rather win a regular?
I actually want to
Uh-oh.
What's that?
at the right course, the Open Championship. I haven't
Okay.
loved every place, but there's been a few that that were amazing, and
Well,
the fans there are truly everybody. You know, you always hear, oh, they're so knowledgeable. Yes, they are, and the golf there is really amazing. But
so
when I step foot at Augusta National,
Yeah.
I know I'm where I am.
well, let's go back to the Open. What is the right venue for the Open? Like we're going to Portrush next year.
Port
Is that the
Rush is
right
an
venue?
amazing. It's an amazing venue. Great venue. I loved the last time we were at Carnoustie. I thought the way the course. Obviously, you can't control conditions, but the conditions there were off the charts. That was an amazing week. St. Andrews is, if we played there
Yeah.
every year, just like we play Augusta National every year, I
Yeah.
think, it'd be a complete toss up as to which one would be better.
Sure.
Hmm.
Because they're so special. It's hollow ground. I mean, you're there and it's just like, oh my gosh, here I am. This is the top of the top.
All right. Would you rather win a regular event by 5 shots or lose a major by 1?
Win a regular event, not a good loser.
Yeah. No.
I don't know if that's the right answer or wrong, but I'm not a good loser, so I'll just take the W.
Yeah, take them out. You know how hard they
I'll
are to
take a
get.
W by 1 shot. I don't want to lose anything. Yeah, I mean, the sting of that, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I'd love to have the chance to win one, which,
And that's kind of where the question comes from. So you're in the
yeah.
hunt at a major, or you just cruise to a victory. There's two totally different emotions in that, and two totally different memories. But I think most everybody that comes on the show will take the W.
Yeah.
I want W's.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Who do you not want to see in a playoff?
Scotty Scheffler,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
The
I've
greatest
seen him in one that didn't work out, so yeah, him.
talking about being a sore loser, right?
Yep.
All right. Greatest call you've ever made on the golf course.
Oh, jeez.
And you've made quite a few. I know this list is extensive, but try to narrow it down to one.
I don't even know because I feel like the answer is supposed to be a club, or a read. Um, to me, it's more the things you say in between the shots. And I remember talking to Patrick a little bit coming down those last few holes at the Tour Championship, and just little things there where where the moment is so huge, trying to keep it not. I think those last few holes there were some conversations and that sort of thing that I remember being proud of myself and keeping the moment not getting too big.
Well,
All
I'll
right,
tell you on that
yeah, go
note,
ahead.
I remember standing in that 18th fairway. I think I've got the yardage marker somewhere up there. I was with Bones, and we were covering John Rahm, and I think Maltby had you guys for all your
Right.
calls that
Yeah.
day. And I'm standing there next to John and Adam, and they've got 231 to the flag. And John looks at Adam and says, "Pretty much got to make this to put any pressure on him, right?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "All right, what club are we making it with?" And he said, "5-iron." And from our vantage point in the fairway, and you guys were about 20 yards to our left, it looked like he darn near made that 5-iron from 231.
And what's amazing, Pat actually, I was in the mindset of not really wanting to watch them, staying kind of, he had an incredible drive, and we're in the driver's seat. Stay in the moment, stay with what we're doing. Whack, Pat's watching this. And I think Pat said something like, oh my, wow. Yeah, and you watch that thing bounce over the hole, and you, oh my gosh, Patty might have said, like what a shot or whatever.
Yeah.
Then we got down there and went through the process that we always did. Nothing changed. Where are we landing it? Where's the wind? Like 6 iron? Yep. And I mean, then he hit, one of the best shots he's ever hit in his life, to seal the deal. Yeah, that was cool.
Okay.
Well, this list probably is not very long, but biggest mistake that you can think of.
Have you made a mistake ever on the golf
Of
course?
course.
That might be a better
Yeah.
question.
No, I mean, of course. I mean, it's funny, like guys will talk about, bad yardages you might have given. And I've given quite a few bad yardages that fortunately the pro caught before he actually hit. You sure about that number? And you go, oh, no.
Yeah. Let's do that one more time.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, let me go look at this head. Oh gosh, what should I have done? Again, it's a similar situation as the best call you made. It's looking back. It's always hindsight as you going, man, on the 15th hole, it wasn't the club, but it was a mindset or some little thing you could have put your player at ease. And I think, to be honest, those happen if you're really trying to be great. I mean, it can happen every day. You're always going to go back and you're going to say, whether you're trying to keep things light when actually, if you had read the situation, they wanted to be serious. It's the mind goes so many different ways in that 4.5 hour span that you're out there. It's always being able to read the moment, read your player, and making sure that you say the right things.
Commissioner for a day, the first change you make.
I'll say it. I'm going to bring everybody back together.
Love it.
Perfect.
Yeah. There's so many players that I miss competing against, miss watching. I know they're playing golf, but I'm not watching it.
I was driving.
Not because I don't want to watch them. Honestly, some of my favorite players I ever watched on tour are on the Live Tour. So I want everybody back together.
I was driving into the Players Championship on Sunday this past year, and I took a little back road south of Sawgrass, took that little bridge over the Intercoastal, turned around and came up. And I look over to my left as I'm driving north on the Intercoastal, and I see this guy with long blonde hair throwing a Frisbee in his front yard. And I go, that's Cam Smith.
Yeah.
And I'm driving into work I'm driving into work for TV, and Cam Smith's over here throwing the Frisbee in his front yard. And I'm like, he belongs out here on this golf course. So yeah, there's a lot of strangeness when it comes to who's not there at some of these big events.
Yeah. I don't know. So maybe some smarter people than me will figure it out.
Okay. I think we're getting closer and closer, so we'll see. Final question, Rev.
I don't believe anything I see on the internet.
That's fair. Final question, Rev. Who should be the next guest on My Side of the Bag?
Travis Perkins.
There you go.
Done.
Yeah, he's
current caddy for Sam Burns.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a great story. It was, played on tour, had a card, and I think he's a fantastic caddy. He's worked for a lot of guys that had a lot of success when he was on the bag.
Snedeker, Sam.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good brain to pick.
Okay. All right. Well, we want to thank our sponsors, Uncle Keith's Red Sauce and Birdie Brands, for sponsoring this episode. I want to thank Rev, a.k.a. Matt Minister, for joining us. You guys can watch us on Spotify, YouTube. We're on all the social media channels at My Side of the Bag. Give us a listen, give us a like, and we'll keep giving you a view of the world of golf from My Side of the Bag. And before I let you go, Rev, was in a tight spot this year, final group on a Sunday on the Corn Ferry Tour, and I actually told myself on the range, I said, I'm going to channel Rev today. I'm going to walk like he walks. I'm going to talk like he talks. I'm going to stay as flatline as I can, like I see Rev out there. And my guy was tied for the lead with 2 to play. Unfortunately, made a couple of loose swings, made some bogeys coming home. T4, his best finish of the year. And I contribute a lot of it to me just trying to be like you. So thanks for the
That means a
example you
lot.
set.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks for seriously, thanks for the example you set and for inspiring me to be the best I can be out there. So thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, boys. Thanks for joining us. And again, we'll
Thanks,
see you next
Rev.
time on my
Thanks,
side of
Scotty.
the bag.